Let's open up the OG mailbag. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovias. We are inside Eford Studios. We're always brought to you by Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. But on mailbag days, the free portion is brought to you by The Butcher's Market. Check them out online at thebutchersmarkets.com. Get everything you need for a grilling weekend. You want to win the pool grill? Go to The Butcher's Market. You're looking for easy meals you don't have to think about? Go to The Butcher's Market. You want a case of hot dogs like Giglio? Go to The Butcher's Market. You want to find OG Light in the future when we do another canning run? Butcher's Market's going to have it. Very excited about that. Like my Roback hat?
It's really nice. It looks like it's ventilated in two of your panels too.
Yeah. You know, you're like, who wears 5-panel hats? Apparently Roback users, Roback customers.
Love it when you
have 5-panel hats.
Nonsense back at me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roback.
Here's a mail that never fails. Makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, what a whale.
Y'all know how it works on the Mailbag Fridays. Free portion right now. It's brought to you by The Butcher's Market. You want to get the whole mailbag. You have to go to ogtrianglemedia.com. Be part of OG Fans. Part of OG Fans, you even get discounts for things like our OG Triangle Media pop-up shop, ogtrianglemediashop.com. If you're an OG Fan subscriber, you can find a way to get free shipping, which basically makes these products at cost for us. So go be part of OG Fans. Go to ogtrianglemediacom. I'm going to let you all know right now all of the reaction to the top 10 losses, all the sports phone calls that we've been receiving about that. That's on the paid side of things today.
Okay.
On the paid. We got a lot of other things to get into, a lot of other questions to get into. So all those top 10 reactions will be on the paid side. So go to ogtrianglemediacom and get it today.
You've got mail.
All right. This comes to us from a 336. Hey, Joes, what did you think of Will Wade's interview with John Rothstein? I think that was published yesterday. Listen to a little bit of it this morning. Will Wade has been, and the UNC State head coach, has been on a media tour. He's hitting all your major podcasts, your basketball influencers like Aaron Torres, John Rothstein, obviously, Mr. This is March, we'll sleep in May, or whatever, right?
Technically, he should be sleeping, I think. But
no, he never sleeps.
Oh, okay.
He never sleeps. This is a man who,
116 days until.
I think my favorite, when all the stuff was going on with Iran, right? Like, are we going to do something or not? I forgot who it was, but they posted, I really need John Rothstein to tweet out something about like these two teams have scheduled something in 2027. Yes. I need that right now in my timeline to break it up. So I watched the John Rothstein interview. I thought it got off to a weird start where he was trying to be like, hey man, what's it like for a Clemson grad to be coaching at NC State? And like, when you were at Clemson, what'd you think of NC State?
Oh, okay.
It's a very interesting start to the podcast. And Will, I thought, did a very, very good job trying to steer it. You should watch it if you haven't yet, because he gives a lot of love. He gives a lot of love to Herb Sendek and how a great job he's doing out at Santa Clara. And like, it was perfect synergy given the week we've had. Wow. With some of the Herb Sendek takes. So you should watch it to be triggered.
Okay.
You should do that. I mean, it was a Will Wade interview. I thought there were some interesting questions from Rothstein. But it was a Will Wade interview at the end of the day. And I think it kind of ties to the conversation we were having with JC Zembel last week at Longleaf, when, I can't sit here and do what we do and tell Carolina to get with the times. I can't tell State, hey, you need to play this game. You have to step your game up financially, and you need a coach that is unafraid. And they have that in Will Wade. And how they go about that in terms of their social media is necessary to completely rebrand how NC State is viewed. I will say this about Will Wade, and I hope people finally see this now. The college basketball media sphere has gotten smaller over time. And you can tell, if you pay attention, who are the guys, if that makes sense. Like, you can tell the assistant that is friendly with the college basketball tastemakers. If they're friendly with those people, they usually get pumped up when people get talked about them in the next hiring cycle.
Shaka Smart.
Right. All these guys. I mean, the Miller brothers, for heaven's sake.
The Miller bros.
Are a prime example of this. Well, Will Wade is one of those guys. So I do think one thing that we have to recalibrate if you're an NC State fan, this is the first time in a long time, if ever, really.
I was going to say.
Going back to the Volvano era.
Yeah, go back to V to find somebody the media liked.
When the media was completely different, right?
Sure.
Volvano, I want people to understand what I'm saying here. I am not saying that Will Wade is Jim Valvano. Okay. But what I am saying is this is the first time since Jim Valvano that NC State has a coach that understands the media landscape better than anybody. And Will Wade is leveraging that knowledge of how it works to best position himself and in the process, best position NC State to be discussed. So it's going to be interesting to see how NC State is actually discussed without that air of, well, the Herb Sendek stuff. All State fans, you should be careful what you ask for. What do you expect? Know your role. Like all the things that we're all tired of in this market. Not just State fans. I'm just saying in this market, what we usually hear, all that stuff should be stripped away because Will Wade is that guy that the Jeff Goodmans like, John Ronstein likes, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be an itch. I don't know how it's going to play. Obviously, you got to win, but it will be treated differently if Will Wade gets off to a little bit of a slow start or it doesn't come out of the gate really hot like what happened with Pat Kelsey. It's going to be treated a little bit more with kid gloves because of those relationships.
What I've noticed more than what he's done in terms of other interviews has been what they've done in-house.
Yeah.
They went out to the bell tower and they're doing things and interviews over there and trying to introduce their players to the fan base, which is really smart.
Mm-hmm. Because as you know, I heard when we were going through the list of things, there was a guy who was drafted by Duke that I had to remind myself of. I'm like, wait, who was this guy? He was only here for a year? Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember seeing him play. Like that kind of stuff. That's what you got to do to help sell that connection. Makes total sense to me. So far, the assessment for Will Wade and these interviews, he's doing what he needs to do. And that's sell NC State.
Yep.
And NC State has not had this kind of salesman in a long time. And Mark Godfrey does not count.
Well, no one liked Mark.
Ding,
The
ding, ding,
national
ding.
media didn't like Mark.
Ding, 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 ding. Next in the mailbag from a 252. Just when I thought things had gotten quiet with UNC football, Mike Lombardi showed up on the Carolina Insider podcast. Is it me, or is there zero buzz about the Tar Heels right now? And is that not the point? I guess essentially saying you got Bill Belichick, you've got Lombardi, you've got, like we talked about with Will Wade, you're leveraging your media contacts like Lombardi did with Pat McAfee. Where's the buzz around Carolina football? I mean, I don't think you're going to have any until we actually play a game. And I don't know. I guess this is reiterating a point here in what I've said about Bill Belichick and the apparatus over there. Bill Belichick, and this is something that I think dawned on you, remember? Where it was like, where's the personality? Where's this? Where's that? That's just not Bill Belichick when it comes to a normal media setting. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's no sizzle. There's nothing really that gravitates you to his personality, and that's by design.
He's not the sell. His brilliance and difference is the sell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I mentioned this in yesterday's episode. I feel like they've missed a step by not highlighting, he was with the Patriots for 25 years.
I know.
24 years.
I know. And
all you got to do is pick out one or two of these things. I've told you this all the time. And part of this is by design. Okay. Let's be very clear. The less we know about North Carolina, the more happy Bill Belichick is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He doesn't want anyone to know anything about him. But the truth of the matter is, all you got to do is look back throughout the years. And I would highlight, hey, here's a game they played against Detroit. I remember this. They threw the ball 25 times to open the game. Like 2 weeks later, they're playing at home. They ran the ball 25 times to open the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did this stuff on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason he did it is because not only does Bill Belichick believe in year-to-year propositions, he believes in game-to-game propositions. He really does.
Yeah.
And what he believes in, there's a different way. And your versatility is truly how you win football games. Being prepared is how you win football games. As I challenged Andrew Jones from
Tar Heel Illustrated, yeah.
Tar Heel Illustrated, I said, if I were you after they went and signed Gio Lopez,
Mm-hmm.
I would go look at the games that Jacoby Brissett started.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And I promise you, in that script on the opening night against TCU, I promise you, there's going to be at least 3 of those plays from the opening sequence of Jacoby's Thursday night start when he had to fill in as a rookie for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Remember, Brady was suspended.
Yeah.
Garoppolo started the first 4 games.
Right.
Garoppolo gets hurt. Brissett has to start.
Mhm.
They basically ran the wing T with Brissett. They did.
I know. I remember.
And I'm telling you, you're going to see. So those are the kind of things that I take as a challenge as someone who covered football, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, you're not going to tell me anything. Fine. All your film will tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
All of your film in all the different situations. I laughed because I had a conversation with Naheem Hines about Eli Drinkwitz.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember, Drink followed Matt Canada.
Yeah.
Now I could call all of Matt Canada's plays
Mhm.
to the point where when I told Mike Archer this, Mike Archer, who used to work for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Archer still has friends who work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He told them when Matt Canada got there, here are the 3 plays you're going to see them run over and over and over again. They literally texted him after the first game and they said, how did you know that that's what Matt Canada was going to run?
Yeah.
And he was like, it's all he did at state,
It's what he
right?
does.
But he told me, he's like, you had, now keep in mind, for all those people who are like, you don't know shit about shit. This is NC State's former defensive coordinator
Yeah. Well,
that I'm telling.
maybe he didn't know shit, Joe.
Not
Maybe-
true.
Maybe Mark Archer didn't know shit.
Not true.
No, I know.
So listen, I'm just telling you, you go through and
Yeah.
you look, Naheem tells me about Drink. He goes, listen, we had 10 total plays. Yeah, we ran them different formations. We ran them out of different, he goes, we only had 2 running plays in college. And I was like, right. The zone stretch that Dave to this day runs on first down
Mhm.
90% of the time.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Just go against your tendency once or twice. What I'm getting at though is with Belichick,
Mhm.
I would go through, play those greatest hits. The sun, like Brett Bielema sitting there saying, Brett Bielema, boys with Dave Doran, by the way. Hey, I didn't even think about the sun. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think Belichick's true genius has always been he thinks of things that the normal coach doesn't. And that's always like a fine line to think, well, isn't that obvious? And then you're like,
but there's
no.
also paralysis by analysis, and there's also player development that also goes along with it too.
For sure.
And you can come up with all the plays that you want, but you still need dudes to execute it. And we found that out with Bill Belichick after Tom Brady.
Well, there's that.
So that's the part that I'm most curious about. Because again, getting to that Mike Lombardi, I went and skimmed through. It's a 15-minute conversation that Jones Angel and Adam Lucas had with Mike Lombardi on the Carolina Insider podcast. And they're just talking about the normal basic stuff. It's buy-in and what we want to develop. And also, it's all the stuff we've all heard before. There's really nothing new. And ultimately what it's going to come down to and where the buzz will be generated for the Tar Heels is if they win. But they've already signaled to you that I don't think they expect to win. They just want to be better every day, all that kind of stuff. They're kind of selling a long runway here for what they're doing in North Carolina, except that I think everybody understands there's not a long runway. That's not why you went and got Bill Belichick. You don't know how long he's going to coach, especially at that age and everything else.
I wouldn't put too much stock into what they're selling. They don't want you to think that they're going to be good. So I wouldn't buy that.
Well, here's the thing.
They don't want that. They want to show up and beat you. I'm sitting here telling you.
I think they're tempering expectations.
I don't. Okay. I think they're sitting here telling you, yes, please tell us we're going to suck. Please, please. Tell us that I can't coach without Tom Brady or Lawrence Taylor or Adam Vinatieri.
These are new things.
Who I forgot about.
These are not new things for Bill Belichick. He's been hearing this one at the tail end.
I forgot about Adam Vinatieri, so thank you to Naheem for reminding me.
So I'm going to the NSMA. So we're not doing podcasts next week. Next week's an off week. I'm going to the NSMA. I'm doing their Convergence Summit, and Dan Shaughnessy is supposed to be there.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to track down Dan Shaughnessy because this stuff that you're like, oh, I want you to think this. I want you to think this. We already went through this in the NFL, and those people were proven right. There's a reason why he's no longer the coach of the New England Patriots.
There's a personality conflict there, obviously. His relationship with Kraft deteriorated to the point of no return, obviously.
Well, clearly. Now, do you think that relationship would have deteriorated if they didn't continue without Tom Brady? What I'm getting at is that they actually won without Tom Brady.
Well, you got to remember, he tried to get rid of Tom for Garoppolo, and Kraft was the one who had to save just even those last 2 or 3 years with Tom.
Right.
So that's Kraft telling him, I know more than you.
So,
which, the one thing you can't tell Bill Belichick,
can't tell, especially an owner
I know more than you
who never played the game, right? Like that kind of stuff. Look, to wrap this up with Bill Belichick and buzz and all this other kind of stuff, it's going to operate with wins and losses. It's that simple. I do think that if they lose to TCU to start the season, then we're probably not going to hear about North Carolina for a few weeks until they might recover and get back into some sort of discussion. And I said this when he got the job and when people were losing their freaking minds over all the attention North Carolina was going to get because of Bill Belichick and all this other stuff. I pushed back on that. And I will continue to push back on that because college football is sold on personality, not doing your job. You need a little more something umph. You need a little more umph to it with college football. And we got a question about this related to Jay Billis, right?
There's only one way to win big in college football.
And that is?
There's only one way,
And
that is to have the best talent. There's no way around it.
Now, do you think they have the best talent?
I do not think they have the best talent, but there's a difference between winning big and winning.
This is fair.
You know,
this is fair. But to wrap the point on Belichick and the buzz and all this other stuff, he's not Dion. Okay. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Bill Belichick is never going to look in the camera and say, Virginia, stop stealing our guys. Bill Belichick is not showing up.
I gave you one.
Right. Bill Belichick is not showing up and going viral for meetings where he's saying, hey, I came here with my Louis Vuitton.
Right.
Right. Like, that's not it. He's not a polarizing figure in any way, shape, or form. He's not that interesting in terms of the interview. That's why the Jordan Hudson stuff was so fascinating, because the facade of Mr. Do Your Job and the only thing I care about is football, to the point where I'm not even going to wash my feet and air them out in meetings. We played that clip not that long ago.
Right.
That, you know, you're not thinking about that stuff. And then next thing you know, you're like, he's out here aura farming Riz King, you know, like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's when it became kind of interesting. And of course, what happened with that? Well, we don't want to talk about any of this stuff. It's a bad look. We want to keep it on football. So the whole thing is interesting. The whole thing is fascinating. I don't think we're going to get any buzz around North Carolina football until we get to actual football. And then we'll go from there. And I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't know where it's going to go. All right, let's go to the sports phone.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports Phone and curse or don't.
All right, this came to us from a 919.
All right, guys. Wanted to call because there's been this statement that you have been saying a lot, especially with the recent reinvestment of NIL money into basketball and State's program. And, you know, obviously you keep saying that this is just reinforcement that, you know, this is a basketball school. Now, I think it would be damn near impossible to argue that UNC and Duke are not basketball schools. It's built in there. They have all the history of success. But as someone who is a younger NC State fan, I think I could actually argue pretty easily that the younger generation of State fans are football fans now. I think you could easily look at all of the sold out games that they've had over the past couple of years. I think if you win go to a Final Four, win an ACC championship for the first time in 30 plus years, and the next year you can't even sell out on the banner reveal, you're not a basketball program. Now, like, the Final Four run was magical and everyone felt those amazing feelings, but most of my friends that I talk to that are, you know, 30 or under are still just talking about football and what's going to happen with the football program. And is Dave Doran going to stay? And that's why you get so many calls where Dave Doran is catching strays left and right. I honestly think because of the poor history of State's record against UNC in basketball and not having much to talk about, I think most of the younger State fans now are primarily football fans, and that calling State a basketball school, while true for an older generation, is not true for the younger generation. All right, just want to hear your thoughts on it.
That's a good call. I appreciate that call. This requires little bits of context too. I agree with the caller that younger generations care more about football than they do basketball at NC State. And we could do an entire episode about NC State chasing the thing that they could be better at that North Carolina can't. That's why baseball, chasing a College World Series, well, that's something we can do. Football, you got to go all the way back to when Chuck Amato. It's very, very Chuck Amato week this week. But Chuck Amato and Marianne Fox were key pieces 25 years ago to shift the general thought ahead of where we are today, where college football is the thing that stirs the drink for college athletics. They were ahead of it for a variety of reasons. I remember doing a video feature back when everybody was doing a pivot to video. I remember sitting down with Brandon Bishop, my guy, my Boca guy, and Will Brinson. Happy birthday to Will Brinson, either today or yesterday. But happy birthday to Will. I remember going to the old East Village with Brandon and Will to talk about whether or not State was a football school versus a basketball school. And it was all based on generational lines. The younger generation cared more about football than the older generation did with basketball. And given the trajectory and given how they had been beaten in, North Carolina, kind of stuff like that, it was only going to solidify over time. But that was like almost, I'm trying to think when I did that video. That video might be 10 years old by now, man. It's a long time ago when I did that. Because what is time? My sense of time is so screwed right now. It's whatever. But that was about a 10-year-old video. A couple of things have changed since I did that video. I think with the stratification of money in football, you're seeing how much more difficult it is for an NC State to even get a crack at. All things being equal, let's say State doesn't shit the bed the way that they've done when they've had opportunities to win the Atlantic. To get to the college football playoff then was a little bit easier. Now, which, hear me out, because you're thinking, well, wait a minute, the college football playoff is expanding. Yes, I get that. But as we saw with Indiana, congratulations, you found yourself into the college football playoff, but you're seeing the stratification once you actually get into the college football playoff. And I think people are seeing with the budgets, the transfer portal, everything else, it's going to be more difficult for the NC States of the world, a middle class, if you will, of college football, to be able to get the job done, as in win an ACC championship, make it to the college football playoff. This is where basketball came in. Don't confuse two things, okay? I think if Will Wade is able to get consistent success in beating Duke and North Carolina, make it to the NCAA tournament with deep runs and things like that, it will start to shift that stuff back because it's got to be where the party is. Football is where the party was with tailgates and all that stuff.
Right.
With basketball, you're right. Nobody showed up for the banner ceremony, but there was a reason why nobody showed up for the banner ceremony. It was, I just had mind-blowing sex with this person, but we have nothing in common. And frankly, we should probably go our own ways. Talking about Kevin Keats. So that was when you got away from the hangover of the Final Four, you still woke up the next morning and went, damn, I'm still with Kevin Keats, the guy who was as good as fired the Tuesday of the ACC tournament. People knew. So this doesn't happen with Will Wade without that stuff to conjure up all the feelings of basketball and going, wait a minute, we might have a better opportunity to have this be our identity again, more so than football. Am I making sense?
You are, and
Okay.
I'm going to help crystallize this.
Okay, thank you.
Because I want to give NC State NC State and NC State fans some credit.
Mhm.
Best wishes to Chuck and his family. First of all, he's not doing well in his health.
That sucks.
And while we did not always agree, there was never any doubt about his passion for NC State ever. Okay. In 2000, when Chuck and Marianne Fox came in, you got to understand. And this is why I always tell people nothing happens in a vacuum. And this is why I always get back to my imaginary scenario of being in that room, drinking a beer in UT back in 1993 with the guys from Cary who were Carolina fans.
Before there were webcams?
Yeah. The guys, it was my boys, Punkage from Cary, Ryan Reynolds from Cary.
Yeah.
They'd bring over their friends from Carolina, and we would sit there and argue. That's what we would do. Okay. So what you argued about wasn't just what's State doing, it's what's Carolina doing.
Yeah.
And then there's like this Duke factor, right? So in 99, think of it this way. Chuck Amato and Marianne Fox, really the visionary here, okay? She's the one who looked around and said, now, wait a second. They got Coach K over here. You got Carolina right at the time as Bill Guthridge, but still going to the Final Four twice in 3 years, right? She's looking around going, our real chance isn't basketball. Our real chance is football, because Duke is god-awful in football.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina's just had Mac Brown, but is flailing without Mac Brown. So they looked at it and saw an opportunity to say, what can we be better? What could our identity be? Because it's not going to be men's basketball. Okay. I think now NC State's looking at it and going, where can we get over? What can our identity be?
Right.
To your point about football,
It was right
now,
there.
There's a significant financial investment in football that NC State's not making. Full stop. whatever you believe in Dave Doran, how good of a coach he is, how he's not. They've never invested in football the way that would be commensurate with even Indiana last year, with anything that SMU has done. But take away the funny money, the oil money, take it away, okay? All I'm saying to you is they've never invested at a level in football to help Dave Doran be in a position to win any kind of championship. One pack, one goal, okay? Dave's faults as a coach aside, he's never had the investment necessary to win. He's made the best of a situation, okay? Now you look at it and you go, this reported, $10 to $14 million range that NC State's basketball payroll's in.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Louisville and Kentucky are above them, but that's about it. And Duke will be, obviously, but that's about it. Like, you've put yourself now in a stratosphere in men's basketball because you're looking around and you're going, now, wait a second. John Shire is not Mike Krzyzewski.
No, he's not.
He's a very good coach. Duke is a machine for sure, but he's not Mike Krzyzewski. You're looking at Carolina going, hold up. This guy's not Matt Doherty, but they're about as low as they've been since Matt Doherty.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going, where's our opportunity?
There's an opportunity.
And I'll give Bubba Cunningham credit over at Carolina for saying, and the board and everyone else who put the money in.
Mm-hmm.
They put all their money in football and said, we're all in.
Yeah.
Because they think they can do an Indiana. They think they can do an SMU.
We'll see.
We'll see. I'll now give Buke Oregon and NC State credit and say they're looking at basketball saying, okay, because Will wasn't their first choice, but then now they have Will. They've seen how the fan base has galvanized behind Will. They've seen now this money that is at a level that, quite frankly, not there in football, not there in baseball. So this is your real chance to make a little bit of hay. Not only that, it coincides with Carolina for the second time in our generation being down, and Duke not being down, but not having a war daddy Hall of Fame coach.
Now, to the caller's point, let's see how the crowds look at Lenovo Center.
And I applaud Will for trying to improve that attendance and for understanding that and for getting out there and selling the program.
It got bad.
He's done that. And I look, you guys all know where I get my numbers from. Okay. That 6,100 is a legit, totally and completely legit number.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And if I'm the head coach and somebody told me in a 17,000 seat stadium, we were only putting 6,000 people in there on average, I would sit there and be like, we have to go to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right approach that Will has shown so far for NC State. All of this stuff, though, goes away if you lose in the opener to Lavelle Moton, as Corey Smith has reported that they're finally going to play Lavelle. I don't think they're going to lose to NC Central. Please don't get me wrong.
Happened before.
It has happened before. They've also beaten NC Central many times before.
Yes. But we remember the time they didn't.
I mean, there's a William and Mary. There's a New Orleans in there with Sid.
I'm just glad. I'm just glad we finally got the gentleman's agreement between Lavelle Moton and Kevin Keats.
Well, Kevin always said, not going to do it. Now,
Kevin was smart.
You got to win, and you have to perform. I disagree with JC only in the sense I don't think it has to be Pat Kelsey, and only because now we have the benefit of history knowing that Pat Kelsey did the same thing Kevin Keats did. He lost to Creighton in the first round. So I think you got to get. I think you can do whatever in the regular season. You definitely have to get in.
Yeah, you got to get
number
in.
one.
You got to get in.
But if you go to the Sweet 16, no one's going to necessarily care if you did a Pat Kelsey, i.e., went for what was it, 17-3 in the
Something
league?
like that, yeah.
You know what I mean? I agree that Louisville needed that. They needed that more than State.
Yes. No,
I think
things were super, super bad over like a couple of coaching cycles for Louisville. Okay.
Yes.
Because it ended badly with Mac. Terrible with Mac. And then you had the Kenny Payne crap. So yes, it really, I mean, to the point where,
well, Chris Mack was the prince who was promised.
Oh, I know.
You know?
I know. Yeah, that's another conversation for another day. There's all sorts of coaches who were princes who were promised at those programs that didn't pan out.
You have new mail.
From Bluegrass Matt. This is for Gilio. So he has some bluegrass alternatives to it's a year-to-year proposition. Top 3 courtesy of Bluegrass Matt with ChatGPT's help. Number 3, it's a new dance every fall, partner. Might change, but the music keeps playing. Number 2, you ride the wagon 1 year. Next year, you're patching the wheels. And number 1 year, you're picking banjos. Next year, you're rebuilding the barn. Thanks, ChatGPT. Thank you, Bluegrass Matt. From a 919, Ovius using the phone is listening to me explanation for why he is getting targeted Disney adult posts, probably also on his phone. Disney Google searches, Disney photos, Disney emails, Disney contacts, Disney Plus app, Disney Experience app. Hold up. Disney Experience app on here? Yes, I do. I still have the Disneyland app on my phone. So that might explain something since I was there for spring break. Mapped locations, Disney-related text. Well, I mean, have you seen my brother's texts? In fact, true story, I literally was getting texts from my brother. Is on the phone with dad, and he says that his birthday is canceled due to technical difficulties, but then he said, look for a booking at Disney. Apparently, he's going to Fort Wilderness for his birthday next year. So I guess I know what I'm doing next July. So yes, Disney-related texts. How about that? Disney-related social posts, Disney dates in the calendar, Disney gift card in the wallet. I don't have one of those. And Disney soundtracks. I'm not listening to Disney soundtracks. Your phone isn't listening to you, Ovius. Your phone is not listening to you, Ovius. It already knows you. Okay, fine.
It's well done.
It's very loud.
Holy smokes.
919 area code. Why are you
text?
Why? Yeah, it was a text.
Wow, that was crafted.
Why are you so loud? Jeez, man. Chill, man. Chill.
You've got mail.
Speaking of AI, from Kyle, listening to Bomani, and he made reference to a national sports personality that tweeted sports takes that matched closely to what ChatGPT would generate. Do you know who it was? Yes. Am I going to tell you who it was? No. But we are hitting an interesting inflection point with sports and AI. I was actually reading, I'll get back to the Bomani thing about sports personalities using ChatGPT to craft their tweets.
Okay.
But I was actually reading yesterday this New York Times story titled AI is coming to the NFL and it could transform the game. And basically it goes into how various coaches and front office personnel are utilizing AI to help with their game planning and those types of things. I'm actually trying to find the actual quote here that I thought was interesting. And they're talking to like computer scientists and all this other stuff about how all these things operate. And the thing that I found interesting here, this is a TJ Yates quote. Atlanta passing game coordinator TJ Yates, like coaches in many buildings in the NFL, already works with this telemetry sports for computer-generated coaching aids. The son of an engineer and the Falcons coaching staff's biggest trumpeter of technological possibilities, Yates knows other advancements are looming. Quote, if you're not using it, it's dumb because it's there for us. The days of sitting there grinding until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there are way too many available opportunities to cut that out and be efficient and go home and get some sleep and have a sharper mind and have good energy for your players the next day. I think there's some other quotes in there about the amount of people that are using AI for a variety of different things. I read all this and all I am interpreting is here. So you, highly paid assistant coach, are asking Madden. Is that what you're doing? It's essentially what you're doing. You're using Ask Madden. So there's a lot of things here when it comes to AI that bother me. And I don't think we're asking the right questions related to AI. We see these CEOs talk about how all these things are delegating with the use of these AI agents. Then please explain to me why you have the CEO compensation package that you do if you're not working. Like you are literally telling me that your job can be done by an AI agent. So why am I paying you this amount of money? Most of the AI focus seems to be from all these top-end management folks telling you, oh, well, all these menial tasks and written things, well, all those jobs are going to be eliminated. There's a couple things that happen there. One, you're not allowing for people to get entry-level jobs, which then you get better at entry-level job, you have experience, and then you move up. So if you're eliminating the entry-level jobs, don't come to me in 10 years and say, well, man, we're all the experienced workers to do all these other things. So it's like this weird snake eating itself thing that's happening. But again, I ask the question, why is it that these jobs are the ones that are being replaced by AI when I'm pretty sure I can dump all this data into ChatGPT and get spit out what to do with my business? Your job as the CEO. I mean, I was reading a story in Wired about how all these CEOs, all they do is they text each other all day. It's like a bunch of yapping middle schoolers gossiping all day rather than actually doing their job. So again, why are you getting this compensation package? Sorry, I have a lot of stuff built up on this. But the thing that bothers me the most about the AI stuff, and it's now creeping into sports, is it actually affects your critical thinking skills. There's been studies about this, that using ChatGPT actually erodes your ability to critically think in the same way that using a calculator all the time affects your math ability, right? You used to be able to do this stuff in your head. Now you can't because you just use my calculator, right? I'll say this to somebody who does use AI, right? Like I'll use ChatGPT for a very specific purpose. I don't know what the SEO keywords are, but you know who does? ChatGPT. So I'll put in, give me an SEO heavy YouTube headline for the thing that we're talking about. And it'll spit out stuff that is very, very AI written. And then I take it and use our voice, just making sure that we have the keywords on it. So I'm not saying there isn't a use for AI, but I also want you to listen to the people who talk about AI and how it's used. You and I were in a meeting once back at our old jobs, and they brought in a guy whose job it was to basically be evangelical about the uses of AI at your place, at your workplace. And the whole goal of the conversation was you use AI to take some stuff off your plate so you can then focus on more stuff. In other words, do more work for the same amount of pay. Thank you. But the thing that got me and like completely blew my mind, they used an example of how we as sports talk show hosts could use AI. Do you remember this meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the example given was, hey, it's Super Bowl week. And you could go into any Perplexity or ChatGPT and you could say, hey, I need 10 topics for the Super Bowl. And he types it in, yada, yada, yada. And sure enough, it spits out 10 topics. Now, these are the most basic ass topics that were being spit out. Okay. And I specifically remember looking to Adam, who was sitting next to me. And I said to him, I'm sorry, if you've hired a sports talk radio host that requires ChatGPT to come up with 10 topics for the Super Bowl, you might have hired the wrong sports talk radio host, which gets to Bomani's overall point in that if you are a national sports media personality using ChatGPT to craft your tweets for maximum engagement, I think as he put it, you're a fucking dork. Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? Stand on your own stuff, stand on your own takes. And not all your takes are going to hit, but man, what are you really seeking here? Are you like, can you critically think? But this is how management thinks now. This is the brain rot that's set in with the AI stuff. And it drives me nuts that people just go with it without question about like what's really being accomplished here. And I do think there's going to be a pushback going forward that people are going to start, if it hasn't happened already, I do think that people are going to start pushing back on all this shit and looking for more authentic human experiences rather than dating an AI chatbot. I think it's hilarious that they put a movie out called Her that warns you about this stuff. And rather than looking at this movie and going, damn, this is fucked up.
People are like, where do I sign up?
Where do I sign up? Man, we got problems. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there.
If you'll just let me defend my guy TJ here for a second, even though I haven't talked to him in a minute.
Yeah. Mr. Ask Mad.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit oversimplifying.
You know what I would use ChatGPT for TJ Yates, who's calling up plays or whatever it is? It basically becomes Tecmo Bowl. I will now use AI to figure out what you're going to do, and I'm going to hit up B. I'm going to blow up your play, Joe.
Correct. I think, again, you're oversimplifying things, but tying it back to Belichick, the original AI. Here's what Seattle does out of this formation in goal line. Instead of having to comb through all of Seattle's plays, I can understand what TJ's saying.
Yeah.
Have ChatGPT. Tell me what Seattle does every time on 3rd and 2 from the goal line or 2nd and 2 from the goal line.
Let me stop you real quick.
I want to know what are their tendencies without me having to watch 16 Seattle games.
I'm going to give you one real quick thing here because I experienced this yesterday. The AI is wrong a lot. The AI hallucinates a lot. Now, I'm not saying that this stuff can't get better. Like, essentially what you're seeing is the worst version of AI. It's only going to get better. But I'll give you an example. When I was looking up stuff, Perplexity was getting stuff wrong for Carolina's list of draft picks in the first round over the last 15 years. Like, it didn't know about Dayron Sharp.
Okay.
And I even said, hey, I used Perplexity in this particular case because I was trying to create a graphic. And me, the human, went, wait a minute, this is wrong. So Shout out to Chris, who actually is a human who put the graph together himself. So what I'm getting at is I'm not disagreeing with you, but the danger that TJ Yates runs into is that as he's ingesting all this stuff into the AI can be wrong. And you got to trust your own eyes sometimes. You see what I'm saying? AI is wrong a lot, as I experienced yesterday, even on the most basic things, like give me a list of first-round draft picks by Carolina since 2010. And it gave me 3 different answers every time I asked, and I corrected it. And it said, oh, you're right. My bad. I forgot about Dayron Sharp. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But I get what you're saying with TJ Yates, though.
Yeah,
I get what you're
at
saying.
some point, yes, it gets better. And this is Brad Scott at South Carolina. Okay. Again, I'm really jerking myself off here today, but
you got the tissue. So
Boston College ran a play against NC State in, let me get my years right. It was the game down in, it was the Trevor Lawrence game.
Okay.
So Trevor Lawrence was 2018 down in Clemson. Okay. Earlier in the 2018 season, Boston College ran a deep shot against NC State that was wide open.
Okay.
But was incomplete because Boston College's quarterback was someone I couldn't name right now if you wanted me to.
Right.
It was a terrible Boston College team. Okay. Brad Scott's job at Clemson was you get one at most schools. Brad Scott is the former South Carolina coach. He's now an analyst. So what your job as the analyst is, they give you a scout, and now you're in charge of scouting all of NC State's games.
Sure.
Okay. And this is, again, why I think Belichick is going to have more success than you probably think, because you're going to have moments like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how football works. Now, to your point, Brad Scott didn't have AI. He watched the game the same way I did and said, no, wait a second.
Right.
This Boston College deep shot would have worked with a better quarterback. Lo and behold, on the second drive of that game, they get the deep shot. They ran the same play, Joe, to the point that I called Joe Selfo and I said, at that time was out of NC, a year removed from NC State. I said, Joe, how many times do you think Clemson goes to 12 personnel? And he goes, never. And I said, aha, they ran the two tight set because it was the exact play that worked for Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see a future, and they scored a touchdown because, well, it was Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball,
Sure.
not the random guy from Boston College.
Sure.
So I could see a future where, again, if you don't have the luxury of a Brad Scott to watch every game, to scout every game,
Sure.
to go back and say, give me the plays, maybe not even the touchdowns, but give me all of these situations. Then as a human, you go through and sift through those situations and figure out what works best with you so that you can hit that up B button and blow up their passing play.
Yeah. I'm going to bet on humans every time.
Yeah.
Every time I'm going to bet on humans. I think I'm going to be more right than not if I'm betting on humans versus AI.
Probably requires manpower too, though. You know what I mean? Like Alabama, all those years under Saban, what was his advantage? He had 25 analysts,
right,
including a bunch of Butch Joneses who are former head coaches. And I'm not saying I'm not capable of watching film, but I always say the On3 people or whoever does the pro football focus people.
Yeah, the PFF.
I don't trust those people to save my fucking life. Okay, so they're hiring random people to grade film. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a difference between PFF and say like who's actually being hired in a football.
I agree.
In a football office.
I agree. But that's my point. Like I think PFF is more of like would be your like analytical grading as opposed to here's the human. Here's a former head coach.
Again, I
specifically assigned to scouting something.
AI is a tool.
Yeah,
it is a tool. If you want to utilize the tool, cool, awesome. If you think AI is going to replace a particular thing, I think you're wrong. I think you'll be ultimately proven wrong.
I would agree with that
because the AI can be wrong, and AI is wrong a lot. And really, what we discuss in terms of AI really is just it's predictability. It's patterns. They're really good at following patterns, detecting patterns, helping you with probabilities. And their responses really, when you go into the chatbots, they really are things like predicting things.
So what you're saying is it's a lot like Ken Palm. It's a lot like Ken Palm.
A little bit.
Yeah. It's predicting, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be right.
It's not always going to be right. And sometimes you got to go based on feel too. Did Ask Madden work every time?
No. Okay.